We've got to figure out what's driving this bus so we can take away the keys to get the result we want. And so much of it comes down to our emotional stuff. It's not just about the food. It's about what that food means to us.
This is A Joyful Rebellion, the podcast that explores that moment you realize the life and success you worked so hard to create didn't come with all the fulfillment you thought it would. I'm your host, James Walters, and I want you to be the author of your own story. Each week, I connect with people who inspire bold answers to the question, what do I do now to create a life I love? If you're ready to start answering that question for yourself, you're in the right place. So let's start a joyful rebellion.
What if the answer to lasting weight loss isn't about the latest diet, but about healing what's really driving you to the fridge? Well, that's what Renée Jones discovered after 40 years of yo-yo dieting. Renée is a coach, author, and speaker who broke free from emotional eating in 2012 and never looked back. And through her own journey and her work with clients worldwide, she helps people get to the root of their eating habits and reclaim control without crash diets or shame. We explore the emotional triggers behind eating, how to spot them, and what you can do to shift your habits for good. Renée shares stories, strategies, and that one-liner we all need to remember, which is to face your stuff, don't stuff your face. If you've ever struggled with food or felt stuck in a cycle of emotional eating, this episode is a game changer.
Renée Jones, thank you for being here on this Joyful Rebellion today. I'd love to talk about this topic, but I also love the angle that you have on it in terms of it being very much an emotional kind of a mindset issue, and want to talk a lot more about that. But people are probably wondering, well, what is it we're talking about? And we're talking about emotional eating. We're talking about getting to the optimal health, the optimal weight. You yourself dealt with, as you describe it, the diet yo-yo for 40 years, right? 40 for everyone who is maybe in the car. Through 40 years of going through that diet yo-yo, and you learned a lot. You learned a lot about yourself, I'm sure. And then it sounds like in 2012, you said no more.
Yes, absolutely.
What happened? What was the thing?
I was staring down my 50th birthday.
Okay.
And for women, things change around 50. And I had been told, menopause, it's just going to make you fat. That's just all there is to it. And I thought, why that? And I don't want that. And it just clarified in my mind that this is not something I wanted. I didn't want to be the same weight forever. Now, because I started my first diet when I was 10, and please don't rag on my mother, she was trying to help me. She thought, if we get it figured out now, then she'll know how to do this for the rest of her life.
Ah, okay.
Unfortunately, she was not good at it, nor was her mother, nor her mother. So she didn't have a clue about how to do this for maintenance.
Oh, yeah.
So we started a diet, did pretty well for a couple of weeks, and then we probably went to my grandmother's. My grandmother was a great cook. And it was like, okay, we have to get back on track. But we never did.
Okay.
Or we would start again 6 months later and on. So that's how I learned how to diet, was you do a diet until you reach some goal or get fed up of it, and then you start eating like you always did.
Or the holidays come around.
The holidays, vacation, a friend's party, whatever, any excuse, right? But that was the cycle, is you do the diet, and you come down, and then you start the slow back up, and you just do that. Who thought you could actually maintain?
Yeah.
Because only like 20% of the population ever maintains a weight loss goal for 2 years.
Oh, okay. 20%.
Yeah.
Wow.
At best.
At best. That sounds really accurate. I haven't seen the data, but from my own experience, it tracks. What was the thing, if you look back on all of those years of going on the diet and maybe you hit a goal and then you started to drift a little bit, what was the thing that snapped you back into, oh, we have to start this cycle over again? Was it clothes getting tight? Was it a number you saw on the scale? What was the...
Either or all.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And often the problem for me, and I didn't realize this until after this moment in 2012, it was like I had never heard the term emotional eater. But as soon as I heard it, I thought, I know what that is.
You know that girl. Yeah.
Right. So when my clothes would get a little tight, or I would be really upset, which usually meant my clothes would get tight, James, at one point I had 4 sizes in my closet, right? My skinny clothes, my it's okay, it's all right, these are my fat clothes. And then it was my, seriously, Renee, you got to go on a diet clothes.
Yeah, I've let everything go. Maybe there are some guys who are listening right now. I would say my audience is 50-50 with men and women. So that's always been good. And the feedback I get is that the women love to hear some of the things that the guys go through and vice versa. And for any guys who are thinking to themselves, okay, maybe I have a pair of jeans that I wear around Thanksgiving that I can let out a little bit. I have female friends who are exactly what you just described. They've got a closet full, and it's either divided in thirds or it's divided, like you said, in 25% for what I call aspirational size or wardrobe. I have some aspirational jeans. I'm really wanting to get back into them, and I've got some that I put on intentionally because they're super uncomfortable. And I'm like, okay, these used to be comfortable. And it just keeps reminding me over and over, because they are super uncomfortable, that it's not the jeans.
Yeah.
So you've done a TED Talk specifically about emotional eating, and it's gotten a lot of views. And if you were going back to when you found out in 2012 about emotional eating, and you look back on your diet yo-yo that you've been doing for so long, you knew the patterns that were happening. You just didn't know maybe why. But what is it you've learned since 2012 about emotional eating that's brought you to where you are now? Because after 2012, you've been at the size you wanted to be. You've probably had the health you wanted to have without having to keep that cycle churning all the time.
Yes.
So what did you learn?
I learned to pay attention.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah.
Partly because holidays, vacation, stress, all these things. And by the way, guys call emotional eating stress eating.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
We can't say the word emotion.
Stress is, I tell my husband, stress is an emotion.
Yeah.
But okay, you can have your stress eating. That's fine. No problem. But anytime you are in a different environment or eating food outside your home, it's going to have an effect on you because it's unfamiliar in some way, shape, matter, or form, right? Holidays, there's just food around. From now, it used to be just a 5-week food orgy from Thanksgiving to New Year. Now it starts at Halloween.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah, all the candy
Didn't think
around.
of that.
So what I learned to do was actually weigh myself periodically. And if that number had gone up 3 to 4 pounds, yeah, that's not weight that's just casual. That's actually, I've gained a little fat on my body somewhere. At that point, I go back to what works for me. And I pay attention for a few weeks. And it goes. I have an alarm in my head at 4 pounds. Okay, we've got calorie creep here. It happens. So let's focus, get back, measure some things, because we get portion creep as well.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Yeah? And okay, that's probably 6 ounces. It may be 8. That's why. So you just learn to manage it in a different way and to manage that stress or the emotions in a different way. It doesn't mean you don't feel those things. It doesn't mean you don't need soothing. But we have to find other ways to soothe ourselves so that we're not stuffing down our feelings and following it with a food chaser.
It's so easy to do now, isn't it? Because
There's food everywhere.
if there's one thing the pandemic gave us, it's access to food dropped off at our door, even more so than ever. It used to be you could call for a pizza, and you could there were a few other restaurants that tried it, and some were successful and others not so much. But now there are just services dedicated to making sure you stay well fed.
Yeah.
And you keep coming back, you keep hitting that button on the app. I've never used one. I don't know. I just can't get my mind around how it would be a good idea. I feel like it would be cold by the time it got to my door, so I've never tried it. But definitely make up for it with the food that's just around my house. I try to keep it healthy, but sometimes, my Achilles heel is wanting something crispy or crunchy after work, and I just need a little something to sparkle up the mundane food that I've had in the prior part of the day. So that's what I battle. But when it comes to emotional eating, it's a mindset and it's a habit. When you started digging into that, what were some of the keys that you had to unlock to discover what yours were specifically?
Well, and I'm going to use you as an example, if that's all right.
Oh, yeah.
Because you just said you had to unlock that sparkly feeling.
Yeah.
That's emotional. That's a
Right.
stress response. What we do is we figure out, okay, what's going on? And if you had a chance to listen to my TEDx, I do an exercise. Those crispy foods, do you remember when you first had that feeling about that kind of food?
Oh, yeah. I would imagine. I was pretty young, and it was probably Cap'n Crunch.
Oh, Captain Crunch. Oh, I
Yeah.
love Captain Crunch.
That
Oh,
guy,
yeah.
he destroyed the roof of your mouth, but it was so satisfying at the same time.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, do you remember who first gave you that Captain Crunch?
It would have been my mom.
Do you
Yeah.
remember what was going on around that time? Was it special? Was it just normal? What was going on?
No, it seemed like it was pretty normal. It seemed also like it was always right before school. So that memory would have been getting ready to go to first, second grade, something like that, or maybe even earlier than that. But I do remember it was, okay, eat your breakfast, get out the door to school.
And maybe it's nourishing, but it might have been emotionally nourishing before you were pushed out into the world. Yeah.
Yeah, that's possible.
Or it might be that's when you felt safe. That's when you felt loved. Yeah.
That could be. And I'll say I haven't had Cap'n Crunch in maybe 25 years at least. I don't eat cereal at all, but it is a nice memory. I guess I could foresee myself, not that I'm trying to do this, but if I crashed and burned and emotionally had this existential crisis, I would probably go buy a box of some cereal. I've never gotten that far down the rabbit hole, but it would feel comforting for a minute.
So much of the things that we hold on to are because we're looking for a feeling or looking back to when we felt soothed and loved and cared about. And by the way, the actual flavor of Cap'n Crunch is butter and sugar.
Two beautiful flavor
Wonderful.
profiles.
Yes. Maybe a little vanilla in there. Perfect combination. If we can figure out what's going on for us in that moment. When my mother passed away, I all but crawled into my peanut butter jar. There was something about peanut butter that soothed me. And my grandmother was still around, so I was taking care of her. And when she passed away, I thought, I cannot gain another 40 pounds on peanut butter. I just can't do it. And what I realized was that peanut butter for me, because my grandmother and I were tight, it related to her, to the love and encouragement that she always gave me. She's the only person in the world that I never wondered whether or not she loved me.
Yeah.
Right? So that feeling I could get from peanut butter, twisted as that is. And I realized, okay, how can I get this feeling in another way? How can I get that same love and encouragement so that I don't need peanut butter? Peanut butter's great food, but the quantity I was eating, seriously, not good for me. So periodically I will go to my husband and I'm like, I need some love and encouragement. And he gives it to me. And it does it. We've got to find what we were looking for in that food and then get it differently. And it doesn't feel right initially, but over time it becomes right. And we find other ways to do it for ourselves.
And that's what you help people do now, because you've taken everything you've learned since that moment in 2012 where you had that aha, and then you started doing all of the work on yourself, for yourself, and you learned a ton along the way.
Yeah.
And now you help other folks who are struggling with this same stuff. And again, like I mentioned with the food, our society has gotten so good at trying to make things easy. So I want to talk a little bit about something that I know I've had conversations with some of my friends and some other people who have been on the podcast. We've talked about how it's a little easier now to get down to the weight that you want. They've got these shots and everything. So that has been seen as the magic bullet, but it's also pretty much guaranteed that you either stay on it for a really long time or you go back to where you were after you come off of it. And then you figure out how to deal with the money you spent and also the shame you probably feel by getting back there. I'm sure you've had clients who have gone that route and then they come to you and say, okay, I really need to figure this out because obviously that's not the miracle everyone said it was. What's your experience with those folks who have been through that process?
I've had that experience with those folks as well as people who did bariatric surgery.
Okay.
And when I first started, half my clients, okay, we'll talk about the first couple of months, 5 out of the 10 had been through bariatric surgery and had regained all the weight.
Oh, wow. That's a lot to go through, and it permanently alters your body to just be back where you were.
And
So-
the semaglutide stuff, quite possibly the same. We don't know what it will do to people over time. I have a few clients now who are using it, and I'm like, but we have to work on this. We have to figure this out. There's a British comedian named James Corden. You know?
Okay, I've seen him. Yeah.
I read not long ago that he tried it, and he said, I figured out that hunger wasn't my problem. And hunger usually isn't the real issue. In fact, when I was losing my weight, I used a mantra, and it was, face your stuff, don't stuff your face.
I like that a lot. Yeah.
Because it's being driven by something, James. We've got to figure out what's driving this bus so we can take away the keys to get the result we want. And so much of it comes down to our emotional stuff. It's not just about the food. It's about what that food means to us. It's about where we want to be that we are not. It's about soothing ourselves. So, very often, if I want you to lose weight, yes, I do. But what I really want is for you to become the person you need to be to maintain that boss, to get these things figured out. What are the issues? Let's resolve those. People in New Year do resolutions, but they never resolve the issue driving the behavior they're trying to get rid of.
Yeah, I'm guilty.
Aren't we all? Yeah. Resolutions are just, oh, I'd like to do this.
They're a wish. And it was last year I had a conversation on the podcast with someone who I hired as a trainer. I wasn't trying to lose weight at that point. I was trying to lose some fat, but I actually wanted to gain weight with the muscle that I would swap it out.
Yeah.
That was the goal. And it didn't go so great just because I wasn't as committed as I needed to be. So the whole podcast, and I was calling myself out in the podcast basically because the whole thing was about excuses and the excuses that he hears from clients who aren't quite there yet in their commitment.
Yeah.
And we talked about the difference between being interested in having a result, which is a lot like what you just described with a New Year's resolution. You're interested in having it happen, but you're not at that level where you're committed to making it happen. And so that's a key difference. How do you help your clients understand that? And one thing you said way back in this conversation, I love it when people say this, but it's awareness. Is being aware, because I would say 8 times out of 10, I have a conversation with a guest who's gone through their own joyful rebellion, just like you did. They said nothing really happened until they had that awareness. You had this awareness about emotional eating. You'd never really heard about that before, but as soon as you heard the term, you're like, I know exactly what it is, know everything about it. Yeah. And then you had to start unraveling what it was that caused that for you. But once you were aware of it, you could attack the problem. How do you help your clients become aware? Because sometimes awareness, it's hard for it to come from other people, because sometimes people will get defensive. Sometimes people will feel that shame that holds them back from improving themselves. And until they come to that awareness themselves, and a lot of times it's through help of a coach, through hard life experiences, whatever, they don't make change happen.
Yes.
So how do you help your clients get to that level of awareness with themselves or whatever their issue is?
We talk about personality a lot. I use the Enneagram.
I love the Enneagram.
Partly because in the book, there's a chart of this is the person when they are at their least healthy, and it works its way up to most healthy. And once I know their number, then I can help them in their personality.
Great.
So 7s, they love fun. So when I have someone who's a 7, we got to have fun during our session. And the food that's got to be fun. Right?
Yeah.
I use that so that I have an idea of their basic self and their best self. Because the third pillar in my program is living as your best self. I also need to know what kind of accountability they need. Gretchen Rubin has this book called The 4 Tendencies, when I read it, I was like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. And most people who seek out counselors or coaches need some form of external accountability. I'm one of those.
Yeah.
Now I set things up that I don't want to do with some external accountability. I have walked every day in the last 12 years, except if it's thundering and lightning or there's ice, because I've landed flat on my back on the ice before. But I do it for my dog because he's a better puppy when he's had a walk.
Yeah.
Yes, I get benefit from that. But by making it external, I am more likely to accomplish it. I have set myself up, not intentionally or consciously, but the world watches my waistline. So if I start gaining weight, I don't have a job anymore.
That's a really good point.
Yeah. So a lot of people need some form of external accountability. What kind of support, what kind of care do they need? Because these things are important. When you're working toward a goal, you're not by yourself. You think you are. But if we set up things around us to give us everything we need to reach that goal, we're much more likely to do it. So we talk through that. Okay, if let's say you've got a partner who is junk food all the time. Gotcha. Understand. It's hard living in community. So either they have their own cupboard that you do not go into, or you have your own cupboard where you get everything. Or if you want to share a pantry, put the things that you can eat in clear containers at your eye level. Do that in the refrigerator as well. That's the first thing. Put things that you don't want to eat above or below your eye level in opaque containers so you don't see them. Over time, you won't need to do that, but it sets you up for success.
Yeah.
And then deal with your stuff. Don't
Deal
let
with the
it
stuff.
just,
Yeah.
Don't let it just ride roughshod over you for the rest of your life. Let's get you free of that.
This makes me curious, dealing with your stuff. We talk a lot on this show about people having a therapist or choosing a therapist or finding someone that they can talk to help them deal with their stuff. Sometimes that's a coach for a specific issue. Maybe they had some certain childhood traumas that they're working through or whatever it might be. But do you find that people who work with you who have already been going to someone who is a therapist, they start to realize that maybe they've been talking to their therapist about the wrong things as it relates to their health, their weight, their size, that kind of thing?
They're two different things.
Okay.
Therapy tends to, because I was a counselor before. So therapy is for things happening in the past.
Okay.
And how it's affecting you now. Coaching focuses more on, okay, where are you? How do we move you forward? My goal every time is to work myself out of a job. Because if I'm not working myself out of a job, then I'm being a therapist, right? Because they can meet with people for years. I have a couple of clients who hang around because they like what we do and we just keep working on new things.
Okay.
But it is very much about, okay, from here forward, how am I going to do this? And sometimes that brings up some stuff from the past, which is fine. But we're really going to focus on how do we move you out of that toward where you want to be.
Yeah.
It's not, I know this is cathartic for you to talk about this. It's good to get it out, get it off your chest. Coaches have you walk away from that and do something different to
Right.
make
And
your life different.
I suspect the guidance is really helpful because let's say you have a person who is a high achiever and they are really motivated to quote unquote take care of this problem that
Yes.
they have, and they come to you and that's how they see it. They want to attack it as a problem. They want you to give them the strategies, the tactics, whatever it might be. Then you help them come to the understanding that they have an emotional eating issue and they need to deal with their stuff and they need to swap whatever the emotional eating is for some healthier habit. I would guess that there are some clients that you would have had who are like, okay, I'm going to go all in on this one other thing that seems healthy, but they start to overdo it and they run themselves down and they're ignoring dealing with their stuff by making themselves busy doing this other, what they think is a really positive. Maybe it's they start training for a marathon or whatever it might be. What are some examples of things where you've seen someone swing the pendulum in a completely opposite direction and you have to reel them back in a little bit?
Yeah, that happens. High achievers or people who keep their emotions at bay, they don't deal with them. Typically 3s on the Enneagram if the achiever. It's okay, we've got to get you back into your heart. You're in your body. You might be a little bit in your head, but I need you in your heart because that's where the work is done. And sometimes I'm so impressed that you did that. How's it helping you? They're like, I'm doing the same thing over and over again. All right, yeah. But we all do it in different ways. Every number on the Enneagram, every person I've ever seen does it differently. But it still ends up with, okay, I ate a bag of chips before I got out of the car from the grocery store. Hey, what was going on? And being willing to observe that, be aware of it, and then make a change to the behavior is huge. Because that's the important thing. We've got to change the behaviors. Or, one of my favorite questions, is that how you want to be? Do you want to stay in this? Do you really want to lose the weight?
That hits home.
It's okay if you do. If you want to eat a bag of chips in the car on the way home from the grocery store, fine. You're an adult. You can choose that. But you have to let go of this facade of wanting to lose the weight, because that's not going to get you there.
That probably brings them back to reality.
It's not shaming. It's not judgmental. It's, here are your options. Which one do you want? Being there myself a few times, I was like, oh, crud. No, that's not what I want to do.
Yeah, that's not the direction you want to be heading. Okay, I'm an Enneagram 9. How do Enneagram 9s deal with this whole
Well, you're
thing?
peacemakers, see?
Yeah.
Everything for a bit of peace. I'm married to a 9.
We're super annoying
No.
in that way.
No.
Well, I mean, yeah, okay.
Wonderful people, right?
Sometimes.
But making a change to the behavior is sometimes hard because everything over here is peaceful while I'm doing that. It may be killing me, but it's peaceful. There's not a lot of conflict. It's okay. My dear sweet husband ate spinach for 7 years before he finally said, I don't like spinach.
Oh,
Really?
good for him. That sounds so familiar.
Yeah. Yeah. Do I give him spinach now? No.
Probably not.
Probably not. And it's fine. It's okay. I didn't know. Everyone does it differently. We just have to harness the strengths and use them over our not so good qualities.
You do a lot of work with the different Enneagrams. We've had some episodes about the Enneagram, and it's a fascinating thing.
Yeah.
People listening, they've at least had a little bit of exposure to it, but I love it. It's been around for a long time, like a couple thousand years. So it's not some new fangled thing that's come on the scene, and it's pretty accurate.
So I'm a 6,
Okay.
which means I'm the loyalist. I was reading the questions, and when it said, yes, anxiety is your middle name, I thought, oh my God, somebody gets it.
Someone sees me.
But I'm also a 6 with I used to have a 5 wing. Now I have a 7 wing, because as you get older,
Okay.
you tend to switch.
Yeah, you flop. That's right.
It was so much fun when I read this. The 6 with the 7 wing is the model for the best friend in every romantic comedy. I thought, yay, that's fun. That's fun.
Yeah, you're going to see some crazy stuff happen. That's fun, just on the sidelines.
But it's insightful. It confirms and affirms so many things about us that we thought we were just being weird. And it gives us a way to grow toward our best. And that's fantastic. To be grounded and serene and courageous and confident in myself, that's what I'm working toward.
Now that we're talking about the difference between people's personality types, Enneagram, that sort of thing, what are the differences? Because you work mostly with women. So I'm curious, is that because when it comes to women, there's that much more thought put into, I want to change this about myself? Do men just let it ride and they're focused on other things like their career? It's just not as much a priority for them? Or what is it exactly?
It's funny. When I first opened my practice,
Yeah.
I said weight loss for women. And my first 5 clients were men with marriage issues. They were more interested in that. So I think the stakes for men are different than they are for women. We expect women to get heavier. Babies, menopause, aging, all of that. Men are not as derided for letting themselves go. It's still as unhealthy, but the social stigma is different for men than it is for women. I have worked with some men on weight loss, but the majority of them are women, yeah.
Okay. And when it comes to the way they approach their, as you say, men stress eat, women emotionally eat, because we can't say the word emotional. We're allergic to acknowledging we have emotions, but we're fine with stress. It's allowed.
Yes.
So when it comes to the differences between how men and women process this emotional eating? Is there a difference? Because it's all just numbing whatever chatter is going on in our subconscious that we may or may not be aware of. We're usually not aware of it. Otherwise, we'd be able to catch ourselves a little bit better and redirect ourselves to something healthier. But do men and women process differently?
Yes. And men do more options. They go do sports, or they do porn, or they do ice cream, or they do work. They choose as many options to deal with the same emotional stuff. Whereas traditionally, women are at home looking after the children or going to work as well, but they have a lot more home responsibilities typically. Now that's changed a lot since my generation, but there's still that. Yes, I'm responsible for the laundry. I'm responsible for cooking, all that. Men, they may sit down with a video game to process their stuff. They may use food while they're doing it because you can, even if you got your thumbs going, you can still grab chips. But one of the things that have found interesting is that men tend to want to have ice cream in the evening. And it's almost 99%. If they like sweets, then they want some ice cream in the evening. What is that about? And what I finally wondered was, okay, they're soothing themselves. In fact, one guy said, I've just been good all day and I want to be a little bit bad.
I haven't killed anyone.
I've done my work, etc. And what I wondered was, when my brother was in Little League, if they won, they went out for pizza. If they lost, they usually had ice cream.
Oh.
One lady said, I wondered why I couldn't let go of donuts. But it was because every Saturday morning, my family, as a family, went out for donuts.
Yeah, it brought back the memories, whether she knew it or not.
Exactly. And that's the thing, is there's a reason we have certain foods. There's a reason we go to food. And it makes sense when we find it. It's like, I had no idea.
What's an example, because I'm sure it's happened, and I've even had this happen myself, where emotionally you might be attracted to a food that brings you comfort, but after doing some work around this, maybe one of your clients, after doing some work with you and being away from that food for a little while, and they realized that they were emotionally attracted to it, but they were not fit. It didn't taste good. Everyone's taste changes, but I never really liked coffee until I was in my 40s. And I've never liked beer, and I keep trying it every couple of years to say, oh, it looks so refreshing. And as soon as it hits my taste buds, I'm like, oh, nope, it's not the way to go.
Not my thing.
But have you had the opposite of that happen, where people craved a food when they were emotionally eating, and then maybe a few years later they try it at a holiday, or maybe they have that cookie or that bowl of Cap'n Crunch like I was talking about, and they say, that was disgusting. I can't believe I used to eat that.
That happens a lot. It happened to me, actually.
What was your food?
It was a Reese's peanut butter cup.
Oh, yeah, those are rich. Yeah.
And it's because my grandmother and I enjoyed them together. But I remember one Easter, I bought my husband and myself the fun-sized bags of the Easter shape. Because, you know, those shapes, they're the right proportion of chocolate to the peanut butter stuff in the middle. It's perfect. So I was also trying to give up sugar altogether. And I took my little egg and I cut it into quarters because I thought, I'm going to taste this. And I took a bite and I thought, that's odd. The next bite, okay, I don't think I like this anymore. And I gave my husband my bag and I've never had it again. Because what we're doing is we're tasting a memory, not the food.
Not the food.
We're tasting that memory, that feeling of being with other people. But yeah, it happens a lot when you stop eating it for a period of time. Think about the things we used to eat with all the cream and mushroom soup and cream and chicken soup, the casseroles. It's like, why do we do that? That's disgusting. Right? Yeah. After you've been away from it. But
you probably thought, you probably bit into that Reese's and thought, man, did they change the recipe? This can't be right.
Yeah, because the chocolate was waxy. And I thought, that's just not, the peanut butter was fine, I have to say. But yeah, you get accustomed to what you're expecting it to taste like. And only when you slow down and actually taste your food do your taste buds wake up and go, yeah, no, that's not me.
Yeah. Back in 2012, you had this revelation for yourself about emotional eating. And then you started to do the work and you started to deal with your stuff. When you have clients come to you now that you're helping, they already know, they've probably seen your TED Talk, they've seen the info on your website, and they know what you're about. They know the road they're about to travel. I'm wondering, is there anything that's common among your clients when they have their aha moment, like when they break through, because they already know they have some emotional eating, they have some things to get through. They know in working with you, you're going to help them deal with their stuff. So I'm wondering what a lot of them have in common when they have that, oh, I broke through. I'm good now. I can see, I'm aware.
It's almost always some version of self-esteem. They don't feel good about themselves, so they eat. Right?
So it's when they start choosing themselves over the food. Oh.
Yes, very good.
Right.
Because putting something in our mouths to soothe us is a very natural thing. When babies are born and they cry, we put something in their mouths and it soothes them. So oral soothing probably drives as much kissing as anything else, right? But it's finding a different way to soothe. But yes, I really like this, but now I want to choose myself, not this food. That's not doing the same thing for me.
You just brought up something from way back in my past that didn't happen to me, but something I overheard. And I'm from that generation where I would have heard this. And you brought up the oral soothing. But I remember, I don't know if it was one of my parents or one of my relatives, but they said, oh, yeah, when you smoke cigarettes, that keeps you from eating all the time so you don't put on weight.
Yep.
That was such a, wait, what?
It's that hand to mouth thing.
Right.
I often get people who are trying to give up smoking, but they don't want to gain weight.
Yeah.
So we talk about, okay, what do we do with this hand to mouth thing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's all connected. It's all some form of just dealing with the stuff that's locked up inside you and trying to soothe yourself. And that's fascinating what you're saying about the fact that everyone's breakthrough is when they start to choose themselves over the food. And sometimes that's really hard to do. We talk a lot on this show about things being simple, but not easy.
Yeah.
And it is simple. Just don't eat as much. That's so not easy. If it was easy, we wouldn't be having
a long time ago.
this conversation.
Yeah.
When you start working with someone, you go through to figure out their Enneagram profile. You seek where they could be at their healthiest, where they might be at their least healthy emotionally. Then you start them down, I would imagine, a pretty customized path that works just for them. What's the framework of that process?
I asked them to do the Enneagram and the 4 tendencies so that I know what that's like. And then our first session is usually an assessment of their nutrition. And this thing changed my life, right? I lost my weight on a low-fat, low-calorie diet. And then I found an assessment. Yes, it was painful, let me say.
That would be rough.
But that was the thing then, right? And I feel so cheated because what this assessment showed me is that I needed more fat in my life. And I was thinking, fat? I haven't eaten fat in 20 years. What is this about? So I thought, okay, I'm at my goal weight. By now I'm 52 and have been struggling to maintain. Thought there has to be something better than this. 1 week is not going to kill me. So I was having butter and cheese sauce on my vegetables. It was fantastic. And I lost 2 pounds that week. I had never lost 2 pounds in a week unless I was ill. And I thought, okay, there's got to be something to this. So now I put all my clients through that so that they know what nutrition fits their body. So I need more fat. My cousin can't do that. She has to be more carbohydrate based, right? So somewhere within all of us is a different need. Just fingerprints, irises, apparently even our ears are specific to us and we can be identified by that. So if we are that individual, why wouldn't our nutrition also be? So when you hear a diet and you think, oh, that works, well, I'll try that. It may work for you, it may not. So we start there. So we go through what I call your body, your blocks, and your best. Then in the second section, we start dealing with the blocks, figure out what's going on. When they come back after trying the diet, a couple of weeks, they're like, I messed up. I said, okay, what was happening? It's okay that you messed up. You've been doing it the other way for a long time. But what was going on? What preceded that binge or that I don't care, I'm just going to eat whatever in front of the TV? What was going on? Let's figure that out. Because if we can get rid of those blocks, then you can begin to step into your best self. You can practice being the best of who you are. And that goes on forever. So I don't have to talk to them forever. But sometimes they want to check in.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
And that brings us back to myths. I always like to dispel myths because it's like you experience, we were told for so long, fat is bad. You need high carbs, you need low fat. And that didn't end up being the best thing because it led to a lot of obesity and it led to a lot of misinformation. And just like we were talking about, it's so easy to get food now just delivered to our door. It's also, there's a proliferation of information. You can get it from everywhere. So I'm guessing that a lot of clients come to you with some really ingrained myths that you have to crack open and help them understand there's a different way to think.
In fact, I heard it on Sunday at my church. This guy or Saturday, he was talking about how we were taught in the 50s, after whenever, that we're supposed to do low fat. And the thing that people don't know is that the Sugar Research Foundation paid 2 Harvard scientists in the 1968 to point the finger of blame about obesity at fat, not sugar. They came out, I think it was like 2015, they came out and said, yeah, we were paid like $60,000 each in 1968 to say it's fat, not sugar. So
sounds like it should be a class action lawsuit.
Because then the Senate Select Committee said, okay, A, we need something easier. B, we need something cheaper to feed people who are hungry. So that's when they got together and they talked to people who had been bullied into saying that it's fat. And they came out with a food pyramid, which at its base is 6 to 11 servings of carbohydrates.
Full of grains, yeah.
So that's what we did. And gosh, from the 80s on, we just got so much thinner, didn't we?
I saw on Instagram a few days ago, it had, I think it was 1982 footage from, I think, the boardwalk at Coney Island. There's not an obese person in sight. And that was the tagline. It was like, where's the obesity? And you would not see that same situation now.
I spent 20, 30 years being hungry because of that.
Because of carbs.
Yeah. And now I do a low carb thing because it fits my body. It doesn't fit everybody's body. But when I have too many carbs, I wake up starving in the morning. Yeah. When I keep my carbs under a certain level, okay, I could eat. I'm ready to eat now, but I'm not, oh, give me food. There's not that hangry effect that there used to be because they don't fit my body. And that's the important thing. We find what works for you, and then you're more satiated. So it's easier to stay on a plan.
Yeah.
Not that I get passionate about this or anything.
No, not at all. That's what I like to connect with, people who are passionate about what they do, and more importantly, passionate about what they've learned in their journey. Because this Joyful Rebellion, it's all about everything you thought you knew, or everything you thought was going to make you happy and have a successful life. At some point in time in everyone's life, they look back and they say, oh, wow, all this effort didn't really turn out the way I planned. All of your effort in dieting over those 40 years, it always came back to the same place until you had that aha moment. And then you had to go against a lot of what you had learned growing up. You had to figure out how to eat differently, think differently, and everything else fell into place. And now you help other people get to that place where they want to be. So thank you for that. And I want to know, what's the best way if someone wants to get in touch with you and finally get on track, get off the yo-yo, get off the carousel, and do the things they need to do in their mind, in their heart, like you said, to fix what's going on with their health and with their body?
My website is packyourownbag.com, and you can email me directly at Renee@packyourownbag.com.
Okay, good deal. And I'll have that in the show notes. I really want to thank you for coming in today, having this conversation.
Sure. Thank you.
And sharing your journey, which is so important, because sometimes people will see an influencer or they'll see someone who's had results and they will say, okay, that's great. That's for that person. And my situation is different. But when I can talk with someone who has been through that journey themselves, but they also now help other people through that journey so they can see how different people are and understand that, yes, everyone needs a little different approach, but we can all get there if you're committed, if you want it. That's much more powerful than one person shouting from the rooftops and saying, this is what I did, come get my results. So I appreciate you sharing your stories and sharing your experiences with some of your clients. That's really helpful.
Thank you.
I look forward to getting this podcast out. And if anyone listening wants to ask questions, we've got comments, we'd love to further this conversation. I want to hear if anyone is going through this journey right now. And what's your experience been? I know I've gone through the journey. I'm working on it myself right now. I want to get back in those jeans.
Yeah.
Man, I'm mad about it, but I'm hoping my being mad about it turns into more motivation to do something about it.
You want a little tip?
Please.
Hang those jeans where you can see them every morning.
Every morning.
This is who I'm going to be.
Yeah, that's identity shifting, right? So this is who I'm going to be and not necessarily what I want to fit in.
Yes.
And that's powerful. Thank you so much, Renee. This has been a delight.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining me today. If you've enjoyed this content and are thinking about ways to share your story or even get more joy out of your life, I have a free ebook that I'd love to share with you. It's called Plotting Your Joyful Rebellion, and I designed it to be a 5-step field guide full of guerrilla warfare tactics to help prepare you to overthrow any of the parts of your life you feel the call to rebel against. Go to ajoyfulrebellion.com and click on the link right there at the top to claim your free copy of the book. Again, that's ajoyfulrebellion.com, or simply hit the link at the top of the show notes. What sort of rebellion are you plotting right now? I'd love to hear about it. Connect with me on Facebook, Instagram, or through the website at ajoyfulrebellion.com. Thanks again for listening today, and be sure to stop by next week for another episode full of joyful rebellion.